Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the underworld. The Star Wars Underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun, and it's all-round good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
Why am I not in the intro? I gotta come up with a snappy line.
What's up, Star Wars fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Star Wars Underworld Podcast. We are your source for the latest Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion each and every week. And this week on the show, we are going to be breaking down the series finale of The Bad Batch, The Cavalry Has Arrived. And we're very excited to preview some new music from our good friend, the band F105. Plus, of course, stay tuned until the end when we will answer your amazing questions. All this and much more in this episode of the Star Wars Underworld Podcast. My name is Chris, and joining me is my good friend, Mr. Dominic Jones.
Hello, Chris. Hello, Ben. Hello, everybody. Yes, very excited to talk about the Bad Batch finale. Very excited because I just got my Celebration Japan tickets about 2 hours ago. And extra excited to be watching this Leafs Bruins game 6 that is happening right now. The Leafs are on the power play. We are about 2 minutes into the second period, and Boston currently only has one shot on goal in the entire game. So it's do or die for the Leafs, and also do or die for my sanity during this show. So you might get to witness me have a great time and celebrate and be jubilant, or you might get to witness me have another full breakdown, as I think I did on a couple of shows last year during the playoffs. I think we were live for one of those Florida games, and it did not go well. But yeah, very excited to talk about the Bad Batch finale. I really enjoyed it, and I'm really looking forward to breaking it down and talking about the end of this era and what secrets may be ahead for a future era of Star Wars animation. It's going to be a great show.
Yeah, it sounds like the Leafs might be the only hope for Toronto this year in sports. So this is
the other hope would be PWHL Toronto, the
true
women's league, the women's team in the first year of the women's league. They clinched in a very un-Toronto hockey-like fashion, clinched first in the league this year, just today. So very exciting for them. So
amazing. Also joining us, it's Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Yes, we have arrived, and we're bringing the cavalry. Okay, maybe I just need to quit my day job as a pun king. Anyway, yes, we have an amazing episode, an extra long episode. The rumors were true. 50 minutes, my goodness. Yes, we got a lot of Bad Batch to cover tonight. It's going to be a great show.
I still need to rewind this podcast back and see if I said cavalry or Calvary, because I'm not sure.
You said the second one, because I was like, that's a weird way to pronounce that.
Because I just realized now, I'm like, this is spelled wrong. No, wait, this is spelled right. I'm the one who's wrong.
I have been
That's another word.
Since this episode was announced, like months ago, I've been terrified of like spelling it Calvary, or saying Calvary.
I'm gonna say it for the audio drop if you want to fix it. The cavalry has arrived. There we go.
So, if you're listening to this, on Spotify or Apple, it might have sounded great. Who knows? If you're listening, if you're watching,
that was at 4:10, which is our Star Wars Underworld anniversary number. Easy to remember the timestamp for that. Grab it.
Well, I'm honestly sort of at a loss for what to do right now in the show, because this is normally the point where we'd ask a guest, like, oh, what have you thought of the season? What have you thought of the show? And like, we don't have one. Hannah's not even here, so like, we can't even like.
I like the show.
Yeah. It's good. But yeah. I mean, did you guys stay up to watch it? Did you watch it? What was your viewing experience like?
I was all discombobulated this week. Like, again, I didn't even know that the Bruins and the Leafs were playing each other until you told me, which shows how out of it I've been, because I've been working like every day for I don't remember how many days straight this week, and I didn't even know what day the premiere came out. I thought I had I was a day late when I watched it. I was like, oh man, I'm glad I didn't get spoiled from this. And then I realized no, I actually watched it kind of like literally the morning after it came out, like, when I woke up. So I did it, but for a second I was going all day the day before thinking, oh man, I need to avoid the internet. But no, I was wrong. So that's when I watched
avoided the internet for no reason.
For no reason. I mean, I was very busy, so it was easy.
It's good to avoid the internet sometimes, just for no reason.
Yeah.
For me, I was thinking, like, because I do need to get myself back on a half decent sleep schedule that doesn't involve me staying up until 3 a.m. But I was like, okay, this is going to be the last time, perhaps in a long time, except for Tales of the Empire, that I'm going to get a chance to stay up and watch a new Star Wars animation thing. Because they've apparently, with the live action, we're going to be getting those at a decent hour, at least for Americans.
Finally.
And North America.
Let's
So
go.
that's what the Acolyte is there for. So ultimately, yes, I'd stay up, and I was very happy to do so.
Yeah, I thought about staying up. I didn't. In the end, I've been kind of sick this week. You can probably hear it in my voice. I'm still sort of recovering. And so I was taking advantage of every chance I could to get some sleep. But I did make a point of, like, first thing in the morning, like, okay, we got to watch this. We can't wait. I don't want to be Chris, avoiding the internet when I don't have to. And so it was a lot of fun to watch. And it was, I'm looking forward to breaking down the episode, which we'll do right after Chris plugs some things for us.
Yes, let's shake it up and talk about our Discord first. Join the SW Underworld. Wait, SW Underworld? Yeah, that makes sense. SW Underworld.
Yeah, in a way.
Discord. I'm always catching myself because I always say the SWU. The SWU Network Discord. Check it out. It's really awesome because we got game nights and we got watch parties and we got discussion about tons of different topics on a daily basis over there. The link is in the show notes and the description of this podcast. So make sure you check that out.
Fortnite, Star Wars Fortnite is back. Not just regular Fortnite, but Lego Fortnite. It's getting lightsabers, so that's gonna be fun. And I believe we're having a game night this Sunday on the day after Star Wars Day. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Amazing. Hopefully I will, if I don't work, I will be there. And right now I'm not scheduled, so it should be good. Looking forward to that. So make sure you get Discord downloaded and get on the server before all that, so you're ready to go. Download Fortnite, install it, do all the things, make an account, do all the things, so you're ready to go for that amazing game night. It's so fun. You can also check out all the other shows on the Star Wars Underworld Network. We've got the Raeside, Ion Cannon, Tales from Beyond the Galaxy, Tractor Beam, and more. A few of those are on this channel. A few others, you got to look up the names and find them on other spots, but they're all available on the internet to check out and have content releasing on a very regular basis. If you want to follow us on social media at the SWU, especially Threads. If you're listening to the show, make sure that you subscribe and review. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you punch that subscribe button and become a channel member. If you're watching live right now, you can super chat with us and we'll read your super chat in the SW section of the show later on.
All right, perfect timing because we're in a commercial break, so I can set up the discussion. We're, of course, going to talk about The Bad Batch, Season 3, Episode 15, The Cavalry Has Arrived, directed by Stuart Lee, Saul Ruiz, and Brad Rao, and written by Jennifer Corbett with Matt Michnovitz as story editor. We're going to start how we always do, go around the table, give some initial impressions of the episode, and Ben, one final time for The Bad Batch, we're going to throw it to you first.
Yeah, so going into this episode, I think I had some more than specific, like not maybe expectations, but hopes for what I wanted out of this episode. What I wanted to feel, what I wanted to see, the action moments, the big moments, small moments, whatever else, stuff that I think should have things. And that's a dangerous game. I know better than to do that, okay? Because when you go in with expectations, you're more than likely to get burned. And even with that, like I went into this episode going like, oh, I would really love a moment where like the whole batch, kind of stands all together and they have a big moment and then they go and attack a bunch of stormtroopers or whatever. Like, wouldn't that be epic? There's several other things, and like that did not happen. We didn't get a big reveal on who that dude was. We didn't get a bunch of things. We got a cutaway on the Project Necromancer explanation. Like, they were playing with our emotion this episode. I still think it was a phenomenal episode. I really a beautiful episode from beginning to end. I think great way to kind of end the season. I think it's ultimately like this harrowing episode for most of it because so much is at stake. But then that's ending 5-ish minutes, that epilogue is just it's just gorgeous. It's really great way to think it. And this is a happy ending, which I think we really needed. We need more happy endings in Star Wars. Okay. I know we have a lot of them. We still need more. And it's a great feel good episode. It's a great way we think. And like, I would love to see these characters again. I would love to see Omega again. But if this is it, I'm okay with that. Because this episode was in and of itself a satisfying ending for the series.
Satisfying ending for the series for Ben. Chris, what about you? What did you think of The Cavalry Has Arrived?
Wow, let's start it from the very beginning. I mean, the dramatic logo for the Bad Batch at the beginning. Like, let's talk about that. I was like, not ready for that. I'm like, dang, this is taking forever for this logo to show up. Something, what the heck? So it's the entire episode had an incredible emotional resonance to it from the beginning to the created by Dave Filoni at the end. And it reminded me of a lot of Disney films, like the Disney animated films and the Pixar animated films. It reminded me of that kind of resonance, where I think that just happens when everything comes together, when you have the amazing musical score, when you have the editing perfectly paced, when you have a lot of gravitas behind the story and a well-written story, I think, and then amazing, visuals. When you have all of that added together, I think that's what keeps that emotional resonance through an entire piece of media. And so this definitely was everything coming together, and a very worthy finale for the show, because I think it's all the best elements of the show were in this finale. I was very pleased, that they took their time, that they didn't rush it, that the whole thing was about 45 minutes and some credits after. I thought that was a good length to have, about basically a double length episode to end this season, or the series and the season on. And then I guess beyond that, I just thought that they hit their beats towards the end very well. Yes, like Ben said, they didn't reveal much more in this episode than we already had. They just concluded the story that was being told. So but personally, I wasn't as big on, the like tech train and like all the things that were going on that a lot of the other people on this podcast have been.
Look, they never said it wasn't not him. So it could still be.
It's still a thing. Yeah. So I wasn't, I wasn't expecting that. I didn't need that as a prerequisite to enjoy, the episode. I didn't need, more Palpatine stuff. Like, I just wanted to see them end the story well, and I felt like they did it. So yeah, my initial impressions were very, very positive. I was very satisfied by the finale. I was very emotionally moved by it, and I thought they hit their beats, especially towards the end, really, really well.
Yeah, I agree. I really, really, really enjoyed the finale, and I'm glad, Chris, you mentioned the opening with the logo and the helmets and all that stuff. It was so good. It made me not mind the helmets. I was like, this is actually kind of fun. And it also reaffirmed to me that the thing that bothers me about that intro is the music, rather than the helmets or the execution of it itself. Because anytime when you take the music away and put something else there, I like it. And I think they should just get the Kiners to come up with something new, because they've shown that they can do it in the past, specifically Kevin with the Clone Wars theme.
Yes.
If you go back to the interview I did with Kevin back in 2020 before the last season of the Clone Wars, he talked about, rewriting the Star Wars theme, and he did it once successfully. Maybe he can do it again. Anyways, that's not the point. The point is I really, really, really enjoyed the finale. I think it did right by its characters. I think it gave the characters a satisfying ending that made you feel warm inside. And I was really, really happy with it on that front. Do I think there was still some potential left on the table? Yes. Now, some of that I think was intentional to set up other shows, but there's one or two places where I'm like, I feel like there was a little bit of untapped potential here. And we'll get into what those are specifically in a little bit, but by and large, very, very happy with the finale. Absolute kudos to Brad Rao, Jen Corbett, Matt Michnovitz, and everybody else that worked on the show. I think they did a phenomenal job bringing us to this point, and I thought they did a great job ending the series. Let's start by talking about Omega's journey in this, because this is, I think it's safe to say this is the main character of the show, and we've seen her interacting with the Bad Batch themselves throughout the entirety of the show. And in this episode, she kind of gets her own little Bad Batch in the form of her own followers, where she's kind of the hunter now for these kids that are looking up to her. Ben, what did you think of the way that they went about wrapping up Omega's storyline?
Yeah, I think this is her moment to shine, really, as a character. I think all season really has been. I think she has displayed a tremendous amount of urgency and agency in this season alone. Going back to season 1, where she was, just this kid kind of following everyone around and copying them. It was very cute, but she was still very naive. And I think season 2, they took that a little bit further and bridged that gap. Still showing in moments that she was still a kid and still making choices I think that a kid would make. This season has been just so much. She's been so much more of a grown-up character. Even though she's still a kid, she's much more mature now. And this episode brings it around, just this great finale for her when she gets to lead these kids out of there, and is I love the moment that Echo's like, oh, she released the Zillow. He's like, what, how do you know that? Because that's exactly what I would do. Like, she's doing Bad Batch things. Like, this is great. And like, ultimately this whole thing and being a part of, it is like I was saying earlier, realistically, like, kind of stupidly, I wanted kind of like the big like action shot moment of all of them together, like doing a thing. But ultimately, this was the Bad Batch, Omega included, freaking just stunting on Hemlock and totally wrecking his place and everything by themselves. Like, I think looking back on this, and I predicted last week that like Rex was not going to show up, not because of anything other than just like pure speculation, but I think now looking back, I'm like, I'm glad Rex didn't show up. I'm glad it was Omega's time to shine, everyone's time to shine, and it was the Batch doing this on their own. But they would not have done it without Omega. I think she's an incredible character. I like the idea of like, this is her own batch. I think these kids are her batch, and she got to complete her mission, and then she doesn't leave. She continues on to help her brothers, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Chris, what about you? What did you think of the Omega arc that came to a conclusion in this storyline?
Honestly, like, there's not really much for me to analyze it, because it's pretty straightforward to me. Like, it's just it's very much just like kind of it's not even really a hero's journey.
It is definitely a hero's journey, but did it work for you? I guess
a bit. Yeah, I mean, it worked. It wasn't. I don't think they've really given Omega, at least recently, any massive mental challenges to overcome. Like, I think that's kind of been like, I think Crosshair has had a lot more to deal with in the back half of this season than Omega has.
Mm-hmm.
And even characters like Hunter has kind of some more, especially with his relationship with his need to try to protect Omega, and then his relationship with Crosshair and rebuilding that and everything. So I feel like she's kind of been in some ways kind of a solid piece in the story. And it's still, it's still really great to watch. That doesn't take anything away from her character, but I think her character is really coming to her own now, and she's just moving. She's just moving forward. She's just like a solid trajectory, linear going up, getting more powerful, and but she's continues to display everything that we've seen. Her connection to nature, her empathy for other beings, and her determination and drive. So yeah, I don't really have, I don't think for me, there isn't a lot to kind of really just sit back and kind of analyze or pick apart with her character, especially as it was in this particular episode. I think it was just, Omega was being Omega. In my view.
Omega being Omega. I mean, what could be better than that? I mean,
yeah, it's so great.
Yeah. I'll just say, like, about on the hero's journey point, like a big part of the hero's journey is, it's what Yoda says, pass on what you have learned. Like the hero goes on the journey. Yeah. The hero goes on the journey and then brings back what they learned, the knowledge, the wisdom, and that's what she's doing in these episodes. Is she is now in the role that Hunter was with her in the early stages of the show.
Oh yeah, she's
rallying these kids. She's showing them, you don't have to be afraid, or you can be afraid and still do it. Like that's what she says to the Miralion and the Vernestra Row guy. Like he's like, I can't climb, and she's like, focus on what's up, not what's below. Like focus on your destination. Don't worry about falling. Like, it's your focus determines your reality. It's Qui-Gon. It's beautiful. Like, this is her embracing sort of the mentorship role. And, I think we'll talk about the epilogue later, but like, the rebellion's going to gain the rebellion's going to gain a real good asset here in their pilot ranks for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and Ben, you mentioned Echo saying, "Oh yeah, she released the Zillow. That's what I would do." I also loved when when they're looking at when Crosshair, Wrecker, and Hunter are watching the Zillow escape, and Crosshair's like, "Was that Hemlock or was that Omega?" And Wrecker and Hunter, who have spent a lot more time with her, are like, "Oh, definitely Omega."
Yeah.
Everybody knows at this point she's going to be the one to release the Zillow. But yeah, good stuff. Let's talk a little bit about Echo, because Ben, I think you mentioned it. That we got a surprise walk on.
Oh,
surprise
really?
walk on. Oh, there's a Darth Vader here.
Oh, interesting.
It's almost like we're gonna have surprise music.
Don't
later.
you have a locking door?
That door actually does lock. I could lock it, but I don't.
Where did that on-air sign go? Oh,
Yeah,
wait, it's
that
been changed into Leafs and 7.
We shall see. Let's talk a bit about Echo. And Ben, you brought up Echo being the one to kind of rally the clones along with Omega. Chris, we'll go back to you for this. Like, what did you think of the fact that they didn't bring in Rex, that they stuck with a member of the Bad Batch, and that they had Echo be the one to go to everybody and say, this is our time. This is our moment to be clones and to save the clones that are there on Tantus.
I was initially a little bit surprised because of the title of the episode, the Cavalry Has Arrived. I thought that meant, okay, we're gonna get like Rex, we're gonna get like Ventress, we're gonna get like all the people that we've seen throughout the season are all gonna show up and help in some way. So I was a little bit faked out by that. But that aside, it makes perfect sense, of course, that he would be the one. And I guess this was kind of our Clone Rebellion moment, I guess.
Yeah.
If we're gonna get one, this was it. It wasn't probably as huge as we might have thought, but it still was pretty big. There was still a lot of clones, being involved in it, and they put up a really good fight, and it was really cool to watch. So I just loved the kind of flawlessness and flow of the action. There wasn't really a moment in the episode where I'm like, okay, like I didn't get out of it and then start thinking about like it in a meta way, like, oh, what's going to happen next, or oh, I wonder what's going on, or like, it kind of had me grabbed the whole time. And I think having strong parallel, stories to what's going on with Omega or what's going on with, Hemlock or whatever is important. So I think the fact that, they've continued to develop Echo as a character for so long, and that, he had a lot of great moments and was leading the charge in this episode, I think made for a very strong kind of thing to cut to when you're not showing what's going on with Omega and the kids, or you're not showing on what's going on with the villains. It was great to see that.
Yeah. And it felt right to me that it was Echo to do that. Like I also assumed, based on the title and just, the way these shows tend to work, that there would be sort of a heroic, triumphant arrival from Rex and Hauser and some of those clones that we've been following for a while. But it feels right that it's Echo, because Echo's a character that's been with us pretty much since the beginning of the Clone Wars. The only clone we've had longer, I guess, would be Rex and Cody would be the only ones, and Rex by a couple of episodes. But Echoes goes back to Rookies, and Rookies was sort of the first episode that really showed the clones and their brotherhood in a big, meaningful way. It was sort of talked about in the Clone Wars movie and in some of those other episodes, but it was Rookies that began to show this idea of clone brotherhood and bring it right to the forefront. And Echo is somebody who, has lost a lot. Like going back to that first episode, Domino Squad was 5 members, and only 2 survived. And then it looked like Fives would be the last survivor when Echo, seemingly died. And then Fives died off, and we were given Echo back sort of as not to make it up, but just to, that's how it worked. And so this is a guy that understands the loss, the pain of that the clones have experienced in a way that I know few others do, or at the very least few others that we have a really visceral relationship with as the audience. And so I think in that way, could it have been Rex? Should it have been Rex? I don't know. But it definitely worked that it was Echo. And it felt right. Echo's been a little bit absent from this season, so maybe it didn't flow perfectly because of that. You could perhaps make that case, but I disagree. I think it worked out very, very nicely. Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking, because speaking to Echo's journey and to that kind of the clone story overall, because I think Echo is a great character to kind of see his journey and apply that to a lot of different clones that we've seen through the years. Like Echo's kind of been there. He started as this rookie, he went on to be a trooper, then an ARC trooper, then he died, and he came back, then he was this cyborg dude, then he was a member of the Bad Batch. He's done all the jobs. And ultimately, we're kind of left with, we had all those ideas about like, okay, what if the Bad Batch is this catalyst for this clone rebellion idea? What if, the clones rising up against the Empire? And I still like that idea. I still think there could be something there, because Echo is noticeably absent from the epilogue. He survives this thing. He's still out there. So where's he going to go after that? I don't know. But the whole idea of the Bad Batch kind of addressing that, giving this, and really any of the storylines, talking about Project Necromancer, talking about, so many other things like many Star Wars shows do, bring in cameos, bring in characters, bring in storylines, different things from different other movies, TV shows, whatever else, touch on things, maybe not resolve them, because that's not the job of the Bad Batch. This story ultimately resolved the story of the Bad Batch in and of itself. It didn't need to do anything else. It didn't. Yes, I would love to see Ventress come back, but that wasn't the show's job. It was just that show was just like saying, "Hey, Ventress is back. Deal with that on your own. We're not giving you the answers right now." Ultimately, we are left with a satisfying ending for these characters, and that's what really matters. Will we get more shows? Will we get more stories with Echo? Probably. I think his absence is conspicuous, but ultimately it doesn't have to be, because this story has been told. And clearly Filoni has like ideas for like other stuff. Like he wouldn't have left. I think Rex and Echo and all the other clones that were with them being just kind of not in this speaks, I think, to a larger story at play, and we're just seeing part of it, but it was not meant to be in this show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I gotta say, I think there were two sort of episodes or stories in the season that I think were pretty blatantly backdoor pilots for other things. One being Ventress, obviously, and the other being the Rex storyline. And just that moment between Rex and Wolf at the end of that episode, like that's the missing link between this show and Rebels. I think for me is the, you know, how do Rex, Gregor, and Wolf all wind up on that ATTE fishing for Jupas or whatever it is in that Rebels episode. And so I feel like that's something that's probably coming relatively soon, just because they left it so viscerally there. And then the Ventress stuff feels like that's might be a little bit more down the line, a little bit more out there, for something to be picked up on. And perhaps the Project Necromancer stuff could factor in there, because she seemed to know about the Empire hunting down M counts and all that stuff. But that's for a conversation for another day, when it's time to talk about the future of Star Wars animation. Let's keep going through some of our heroes, some of our characters in this episode. I want to talk about kind of our big villain, our big bad through this season, and that's Dr. Hemlock. What do we think? Satisfying conclusion, or did he go out like a punk?
Well,
yeah, both.
I was expecting him to be fodder. So I was expecting everyone to be fodder, though. So, and some were.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think other than that, I like the way things ended with him. I like that he, was a threat until the very end, and was one of the last things they had to overcome. I thought that was well done.
Yeah, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of people banging on about the idea of, well, maybe he gets eaten by the Zillo beast, and yeah, that's a great idea, but also, I think that would have maybe taken something away from the Bad Batch themselves. I think it's very satisfying for Crosshair, especially someone who suffered a lot at the hands of Hemlock, and then literally took his hand away to Crosshair to use his other hand to go, nah, I'm gonna take you out. And it wasn't just one shot; it was several shots. Crosshair could have let up. He didn't, because he deserved it. And it was good. It was great to see, things. And there's the great moment of Omega, him learning to trust Omega, and that whole moment. It's just great. It's a beautiful scene, and it's great. I mean, it's right out of an 80s action movie of just like the villain in the dark, in the rain, he's on a platform, he's holding someone hostage, and then he just gets shot in the face and falls off the gantry in a dramatic fashion. It's great.
Yeah, you knew you were reaching the episode's climax when they stepped out onto the gangway in the rain. Like, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, we're in the true final moments of.
And I love the idea that this whole series, really. I mean, since Hemlock was introduced, like, Hemlock has been this cold, confident villain that's always had everything under control, and from the get-go he is clearly flustered by this. Like, everything is going wrong. They could have titled this episode Dr. Royce Hemlock's No Good Bad Day, because that's what this episode was. And ultimately that's the thing. And just like him, like, literally being so desperate, like basically feeling the desperation that the Bad Batch has been feeling all this time under his thumb. Now it's very satisfying scene.
Yeah, they've returned the favor. Yeah, it was a beautifully shot scene, and well performed by both the animators and the voice actors. But I this was one place where I don't know, I felt like there was still more that could be done with old Dr. Hemlock. Much as I liked this, and I liked the way they did it with Omega, stabbing him with the screwdriver and stuff. I don't know. This character was so intimidating and could be so powerful that this was was like it was like an 8 out of 10. This finish for him, which is good. I like an 8 out of 10, but I also don't mind a 10 out of 10. So I was happy with it. I liked seeing him struggle. He still had some good villainous moments. The guy who plays him, Jimmy Simpson, is that his name? He's really, really, really good. He continues to be really intimidating in his performance. And I loved where you could hear him sort of breaking. You could hear him being afraid and overwhelmed, and that was a nice change of pace from this character. Let's talk a little bit about the rest of the Bad Batch. We have Hunter, we have Wrecker, we have Crosshair. We mentioned Crosshair. Ben, you mentioned Crosshair is kind of the conclusion to his arc in taking out Hemlock, and Chris, you mentioned Crosshair having a lot of sort of mental obstacles to overcome in this episode. So we'll go to you first on this, Chris. What did you think of how Crosshair went about overcoming those obstacles?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, this particular, I guess you could call it kind of like an arc of the Tantus part of this, which began like a week or two ago, whenever that did, has been kind of like that similar endpoint to Crosshair's journey that it has been with Omega's, where he's now on the other side of a lot of stuff. And you saw that with the comparison between him and Rampart, because you went from having Crosshair being the character who's in question of like, what does this guy really want? What is his, where does his allegiance really lie? Is it with the Empire? Is it with Bad Batch? Is it with himself? Was the big question. To now he's firmly back with the Bad Batch, and you're seeing him juxtaposed with Rampart, who isn't. So, and then we saw Rampart completely diverging off into a completely different. Oh, do we have the goal?
I just got caught up.
Oh my god.
Din's watching in the other room, and I guess he's about 5 seconds ahead of me. He pops. I heard him make a noise, and he pops in. He goes, Nylander scores, and then I'm watching. There it goes in.
Oh,
54 seconds left of the second.
You got it before it updated on Google by like 10 seconds, so I was not expecting. That's how delayed Google is with their scoreboard. I was wondering, I could tell you were distracted, but I couldn't tell why. I should have known.
Yeah.
So what was I saying? We still got a whole period
to go. Yeah. Oh yeah. It ain't over. It ain't over till it's over.
Not over. And then a whole game after that. But yeah. So what was I saying? Yeah. So we have that juxtaposition. So I think that's kind of the key. I think that's kind of where they position Crosshair in this episode, is he's completing his arc. We've already kind of realized that he's fully, firmly back with the Bad Batch and loyal to them again, because they're giving him that loyalty that the Empire didn't. And so he's back with the Brotherhood, and now he's just, doing all the things that he would have done prior to all of this, where, he's willing to do a plan 99 if necessary, or, willing to, overcome his perceived limitations when he absolutely needs to get the job done, like at the end with Hemlock and Omega. So yeah, I think it was kind of a great conclusion, a great endpoint to a fantastic story that has been told over the length of this show with that character. And I think it's one of the high points, one of the strong points of the series, is the development of Crosshair as a character, and going from member of the Bad Batch to traitor to member again. I think that was really cool.
And his storyline like mirrors, or I don't think mirror is the right word, but it tracks really well with Omega's, because you go back to the early days of the show, like that first episode, he wants nothing to do with her. And he's so cocky and so overconfident that he can't see her value. He can't see her purpose. And then in this episode, he's afraid to take the shot because he's afraid of accidentally getting her. And it's what is it that Hunter says to him? Trust Omega. She can do it. And so she creates a situation where he can take a relatively safe shot. He's not likely to miss and hit her heart, sort of thing. But it really, it's really beautiful. It really paid off as a great conclusion to his storyline. Ben, do you want to add anything on Crosshair?
Yeah, no, I mean, I like his. I mean, he's in a very emotional state in this episode, I think, especially towards the beginning.
Yeah.
And his hand is really acting up seemingly early on in the episode. And I think he's, he has that speech at the end at the beginning that says, "Look, guys, Clone Force 99 died with tech." Yeah. And this is just let me go, plan 99 myself, mm-hmm. and get what I deserve. And it's such a tough moment for him personally, and also just the desperation that he's feeling, mm-hmm. of just like and shows how much remorse he feels, because we're very easy to forgive these characters. But ultimately he did some messed up stuff to a lot of people. And he even tried to do messed up stuff to the Batch. He even, I think there's a moment when they're on the junk planet in season 1 where he's like, yeah, aim for the kid. And Crosshair did some stuff and he recognizes that, and he's feeling remorse for that. I think that's great. And yeah, he does. I mean, kind of in classic Star Wars villain fashion, he suffers for it. He gets burned in the face. He loses his hand, mm-hmm. but then ultimately makes up for it with that final play, which I think is just great. So, yeah, I think he's a character that's come such a long way. Made me like him so much more, because I think he was more or less kind of for most of season 1, kind of a one-dimensional villain. Mm-hmm. And then he kind of wasn't around for a while. And then he shows up this season and he's a vastly more interesting character.
Yeah. And Chris, you mentioned it earlier, he was willing to do a Plan 99. And we've talked a bit on this show about how Star Wars, oftentimes in Star Wars, redemption means death. And it almost feels like Crosshair has been going through the motions of this season, feeling like that the only form of redemption for him is going to involve his death. And so he's saying to Hunter, this squad is dead. It doesn't exist anymore. Let me pay the ultimate price so that you guys can go on, because I'm not a part of what Clone Force 99 has become. And it's not until that moment at the end when he's afraid to kill his sister, this newest member of the Batch, that I think he realizes, no, he is part of this. He really is part of this, and he belongs here, as he always has. So yeah, beautiful conclusion to his arc. Hunter there kind of guiding him through it, which has been nice to see through this season. Hunter could also be a little bit one note at times with the protect Omega stuff, which is an understandable instinct. But it was nice that this season they gave him a real foil in Crosshair, and the Crosshair redemption, and the two of them having to work through that, including that episode where they basically go and beat each other up for a little bit. I feel like this season gave Hunter a really a nice sort of purpose beyond just protecting Omega, and that was good to see and nice to see. Any thoughts on Wrecker and his involvement? I do like, Ben, we got kind of a we have a Hulk kind of moment where Omega says we've got I can't remember what the exact line is, but she's sort of taunting Hemlock with
I think she's like, and I've got them or something.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, really nice.
And we have a Wrecker, and he's gonna wreck you.
Yeah, I mean, it was just incredible seeing how much of a beating Wrecker and Hunter can take and still fight.
Right. Yeah, I was worried about Wrecker. I mean, it really was, because I knew there was something going on when he got that slash across his thing, that whatever that that thing was that cat bear thing in the woods, like slashed him across his chest, like it dug into his armor, and like he was really not doing well. And that kind of surprised me, because I thought like, oh, they're gonna run in there and do that. Like, no, they're down a man. Like, their strongest guy is probably has a few broken ribs, probably at the very least. He's not doing very well. And ultimately, yeah, it's just I think that was something that stuck out to me, that like they were already kind of on their back foot, and Wrecker was hurting. And I think ultimately he does come through. I think it's nice. I think it's nice that even in their darkest moment, even when they're on their back foot, they probably had their finest hour, really, truly. Like, they did the biggest thing they ever done. They took down Mount Tantus single-handedly. It's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah. That was absolutely incredible. I mean, you knew they would do it. There was no doubt that they would do it, but it still doesn't take away from how incredible the feat was.
And it doesn't, like, I mean, and you do in those moments where, I mean, they have that really cool pacing of just like, the classic all hope is lost moment. That's what I call it. Just like this moment of just like everything is going wrong, nothing's working, where they're all captured and everything is bad. And there is that moment where you're like, we've talked about it, like who's gonna die, and all of them were in peril at one point or another. Like, it really was hairy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ben, you say it's the all hope is lost thing. Like, again, I think we mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. In writing, they call that the dark night of the soul moment, and that is immediately followed by the break into Act 3, and like that's done to perfection there. Of it seems like all hope is lost, is nothing's gonna work, and then we have a Hulk, we have a Wrecker literally breaking into Act 3, and the sort of the final play. Really, really good stuff. Let's talk a little bit about Rampart and Nala Se. This boy, just talk about torturing your audience a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
I think Joel put a comment in earlier. It was like, Rampart knows more than the audience at this point. I mean, here's let me say this about Project Necromancer. We know what it is.
Yeah.
I don't need it like literally spelled out for me how it happens, but it is sort of like I did think because they were playing with that idea, and I guess we got a little bit of it with the idea that they were testing, cloning involving midichlorians and that sort of thing. I get that we got a little bit more of a sense of what was going on. I did think there was going to be some more specific direct link from this to what comes next, and where we know it ultimately goes, to the point where like the fact that Nala Se just completely destroys her research, and Tarkin's like, shutter the whole facility, move all the funding to Project Stardust. Like, I was expecting something to be like, we recovered this one thumb drive and it's really damaged, but maybe our best people can crack the code. Like, I was expecting like something like that, and probably when the guidebook is written in 5-10 years, there'll be some mention of deep within the vaults, a single a data cube was found that was transferred to another, Palpatine has contingencies upon contingencies, so it's transferred to some other facility with some other doctor, perhaps named Pershing, who did some more research into
I'm wondering, kind of like what's going on here with the exposition when you look at just like the Star Wars universe as a whole, because there's kind of like a few things that could be going on. Like, for one, you could continue kind of explaining Necromancer very well in other media, just like Stardust. Like, Rogue One explains Stardust well enough that as long as you've seen Rogue One, every mention of Stardust makes perfect sense. It's been, kind of drip fed to us in different spots recently on these Disney Plus shows. And so, that makes sense. So perhaps maybe I feel like Necromancer, though, I feel like I might understand it through just osmosis of just so many people talking about it and every little stone being unturned or turned. Turned, seeing what is under every stone. Okay. But I think I wonder, from like a casual fan's perspective, would something like that really go over their head, and would it continue to go over their head until they have like a story like Rogue One that is really just about Necromancer, that really explains and understands, like a Tales of the Jedi, or a series that deals with it, or a movie that deals with it. A book I don't think is going to be enough, because that's not going to permeate the casual audience much. It'll just osmosis to us. So that's the other thing that's going on. And then the other option is there are some things in Star Wars that just aren't really that explained, that are just mentioned, like Sifo-Dyas.
Yeah, true.
It had a little bit more explanation through that one Clone Wars episode that he appeared in. But up until that point, there was so little explanation about Sifo-Dyas for so many years, and then
I still don't think I fully understand the Sifo-Dyas thing.
There's still not enough. There's still not enough. And then Plagueis is another example, and we're yet to determine if we're gonna get more exposition with Plagueis and the Acolyte or not. We don't know. It's around the time period where it could happen, or it could set the table for something in the future that could do that. But again, at this point, that whole backstory about creating life with the Force, and Palpatine's origins, and like all this stuff is all very much contained within a line where one person is mentioned once. And so I think that Necromancer, even if it isn't even if it doesn't get more exposition, it still fits in Star Wars as one of those just things that just gets dropped, and you have to kind of follow the breadcrumbs to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I don't think it's something that needs to be really spelled out. I think it's something that can be left to the people that want to connect the dots across the multiple shows, because I think to the general audience, and honestly to fans, like, somehow Palpatine returned. Like, I think we can accept that. We accepted Darth Maul coming back. We can accept these characters. No one's ever really gone. We can accept that. My issue with Palpatine coming back has never been Palpatine coming back. It's then what then happens with that. And so Project Necromancer in and of itself is kind of fun. Like, we first heard it dropped in Mandalorian, and it's like, oh, okay, so this was the idea that was out there. Necromancer, what that word means. You can put the pieces together. And then, getting a little bit of insight on this show of like, oh, here's Hemlock working on this thing. And you're like, okay, so there were people constantly working on this throughout the Empire, from the time of the end of the Clone Wars through until, somehow Palpatine returned during the, First Order Resistance era. And I think it can be just left as something fun for the fans to connect the dots. I don't think we need a big explanation for it.
You know what this reminds me of?
I just have to bring up this comment from F105 in the chat saying, "Hey Dom, can I raid your fridge?" Yes, Din, go for it. Hey, take whatever you want, except the pizza in the Swiss chalet container, because that's my lunch for tomorrow.
It's so domestic.
It's important.
I think Matthew's getting jealous right now. I think somebody's. My goodness. So, okay, what was I thinking? Okay, you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of this whole thing that was going on. It really was confined to comic books, I feel like. But during the comic books, during the prequel era, there was this whole thing of this concept of the second Sith. And this idea that, this whole time there's like, we got to figure out who the second Sith is. And then you have certain characters in the comic books, like getting really close to figuring it out. Like Quinlan Vos and Sora Bulk, for example, came very close to figuring it out. And then you have, a potential moment in with Ahsoka. Actually, you have moments with Ahsoka and Yoda. In the Clone Wars that are kind of getting close to Palpatine. So you wonder if Necromancer is kind of like the sequel version of the second Sith. It's more like the second Sith has returned. Is that where, the main characters are always going to be oblivious to this. And you're going to have side characters that are, and again, main characters perhaps in their own stories, like Quinlan Vos is the main story in the Republic, main character in the Republic comics, but a side character in the rest of Star Wars. The Bad Batch characters are main characters, in this story, but are side characters to the rest of Star Wars. I think, you know, you might always have characters kind of figuring out things about Project Necromancer, but the ultimate thing that happens is when we get to the sequels, when we get to the Resistance isn't going to know anything about it. So thus you're going to have them being really kind of shocked at what's going on when you get to the Rise of Skywalker. But as an audience, you're not, just like you're not shocked when Palpatine reveals himself as Sidious. You're not shocked at all.
Well, it's conspicuous that all the people that seemingly knew about Project Necromancer and who know what its purpose is in this episode or in the Bad Batch in general, all of them died.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I'm
Rampart
like, this died with them.
Nala Se knew about it, and she told Rampart, and they all blew up. Like they're all gone, so that truth dies with them. And ultimately, they can't. The good guys cannot find out about this. Even if one of them, if they whispered it to Omega, you know, then you know it's what happens.
Then she's gonna have to die. It's the Angel of Death to know about Project Necromancer. Ironically.
Yeah. Maybe it's one of those things like from this point on, Palpatine, like everything, he divvies it up, right? Like it's divided up, so nobody can know the full secret of Project Necromancer until he dies, and then maybe that's when it gets passed on to, I think, Paleon or Hux. I think Hux is the one that talks about it in Mando. So maybe one of them gets one of those creepy droid things from the Battlefront game and the Shattered Empire comics shows up, and instead of telling them about the thing, what's the thing that Bill Burr is traumatized by in the Mandalorian? Operation Cinder. Operation Cinder. I know things. I'll beat Ben in trivia this year. Operation Cinder. Like instead of telling them about Operation Cinder, they're like, "Let me tell you about Project Necromancer."
I love how they have these super secret code names for these things, but then at every chance he gets, Tarkin's like, "Yeah, Project Stardust. I'm working on Project Stardust. Give me more money for Project Stardust." Like, I thought this was supposed to be a secret, man.
Matthew Hardy in the chat makes an interesting point here. Emery Carr knew about Project Necromancer, and she survived.
She gonna die.
She did survive. Oh, she's just gonna die.
I was surprised that she survived, but yeah,
she's definitely an exception. But I would go back to what you just said, which is like, they only know pieces of it. I don't think she literally knows that, oh yeah, this is a program to create clone bodies for Sheev Palpatine so that when he dies, he can transfer his essence to them and live forever. Like, I don't think she knows that. Probably not even Hemlock knows that. It's probably like what Nala Se probably like told Rampart, just like, yeah, it's for Palpatine. And, you know, we're trying to replicate midichlorians so that he can do some weird Sith stuff.
He can make Inquisitors from scratch instead of, finding,
here's the line that we missed. Okay. I'm gonna give it to you. I got a little bird in my ear that Dave Filoni whispered in my ear and said, "Dark science, cloning, secrets only the Sith knew."
Good stuff. Let's talk a little bit about Emery Carr. I mean, we also, I think, are surprised she survived, but I again, sort of like with the Crosshair thing, I like it when, in stories in particular, when, stories like Star Wars in particular, when these characters get a second chance, and that, she says, "I have a lot to make up for," and she begins to make up for it in this finale. So there seems to be a future for Omega. Again, we'll talk about the epilogue in a moment, but I suspect that may involve Dr. Carr in some way.
Yeah, because this is a massive hanging loose thread right here with, you've got, a clone who knows a lot more information about, the Empire than any other clone out there. And then you've got, some force sensitive children that are out there. Like that's huge, especially at this time when, that's in very short supply. So, you got to think that there's going to be some Inquisitors that are going to be after Emery and these kids. And there's definitely a future story to be told about how that goes down. But I mean, I don't know. Like this is this one thing I keep coming back to with Star Wars, and especially with like the the Dark Times era is juggling all the force sensitive characters and characters that know exclusive information, insider information, because you have these assumptions in previous stories that the reason why everything is the way it is because the cavalry has arrived. Everybody who can help is helping. Everybody with information has given it. And so, but they keep adding on these other threads of, well, there's Cal Kestis out there. We'd ever see Cal Kestis, do anything with, the Rogue One or the Ghost Crew or the main alliance and the Battle of Yavin. And there's like all these things. But he's out there at a point. And so now we've gotten even more that are out there. So is the galaxy indeed that big that some of them we just lose connections to? And I felt like they didn't do it so much with her and the kids as they did it more with the actual Bad Batch characters. But I did feel like the epilogue with the Bad Batch characters, and also not necessarily the epilogue, but the moment in the last scene prior to that epilogue, really gave forth this concept of they're not fighting anymore. They're getting away from the war. And so the only thing that is left to assume is that Emery and the kids are getting as far from fighting as possible. They don't want anything to do with that. And so as a result, they're not going to be involved in, all of these major events that are happening that they potentially could play a big part in if they were related to them. That's the only thing I can assume right now, is that they're hiding. They're basically hiding from everything.
Well, and this is where the sort of the beauty of the way Star Wars tells stories, where it bounces around, is we can have that assumption for as long as it takes until it takes them to tell another story. That's what I'm trying to say with those characters. And at some point they may say, you know what, let's get Emery and the kids back in here and let's tell the story of where they were, which is ultimately like, we're talking about the finale of Bad Batch, but we could compare it to the finale of Rebels. It's essentially what they did with that show, was they sort of gave us a sense that these characters, that Ezra disappeared to the unknown, Sabine stuck around on Lothal, and then we didn't really like Hera and Zeb were part of the rebellion, but they just fought other battles than the ones that we saw on screen. And it wasn't until the Ahsoka show came around that we started to see, this is what they were doing. This is what they were up to during that time. So for now, I think we can assume Emery and the kids have just sort of stepped away from the fighting. But there may come a time somewhere down the line where they're going to tell a story. And it wouldn't surprise me if these kids, inspired by Omega, and how she broke them out and how she inspired them to, face their fears and confront their fears, want to go out there and do more in the galaxy and help the other children of the galaxy who are, under the Empire's thumbs.
I think they're too old to be involved in Luke's Jedi Academy. I hope.
Probably.
I think they will be adults by the time that happens, which is good. Because if not, then we know their fate.
Yep. Yeah. All right. One last thing I want to bring up before we go to the finale, to the epilogue, and that's these guys, the CX clones. When I said off the hop, there was still potential here. This is what I'm talking about. And I'm not mad that one of them wasn't tech. Like, I'm not mad that my little theory didn't come true. I had a lot of fun doing that on the show. And ultimately, I'm more glad that it wasn't tech, because I do think death should mean something in Star Wars. And I'm glad that tech's death did mean something. But the scene where they all have their like badass entrance and they get their weapons out and they're getting ready to fight, I'm like, where was this all season? This would have been sick. I look at these guys as like another Knights of Ren, where it's like you got something real cool for a real quick second and then they were done with it. In that sense, I'm glad we got something cool for a minute, but I feel like there was untapped potential here, and I have a feeling we won't be seeing these CX clones again.
I tell you what, I don't. Thinking, because like in the context of just this episode, I was like, okay, they're cool. Like even I can even kind of look the other way when it comes to like the loss potential that you're talking about. Like, yeah, I would have. They could have showed up earlier in the season. They would have been great antagonists. I mean, the whole idea of kind of an anti-Bad Batch of like these characters that are clearly more powerful and like really good matches for them and really strong threats like CX2 or 1 or whichever one we're talking about. Like though he was enough of a threat to them, like with some things, but like ultimately he was just one guy. These guys were all over the place and they really did pose a threat. My whole thing is just like, I feel like there's something been lost in the story or in the writing for these clones, because they are supposed to be clones, right? Like they are like going back to, what was it, season 2, the Coruscant episodes. You have them, they have this clone assassin, Chuchi and Rex, they take his helmet off. And then he says, I'm a believer. And he, takes the tooth and they kills himself. And that happens, presenting this really intriguing idea of, okay, well, either there's clones that have been brainwashed into believing this, or they're actual clones that haven't been brainwashed, but have actually believe in the Empire, which there are clones in this episode. There's clone commandos like that, which is a whole other story. I don't even get into that. But like, ultimately we're introduced to this idea of like these CX clones and how they may affect things and how, what do they mean for clone kind, if you will, to have clones that are making their own choices, some that are making maybe bad choices. And then we get to this episode and they're like, oh, great. These big, epic characters, but they're brainwashed. Their chips have been messed with or whatever else. And we just murder them all and they're just gone. And it's like, where were you guys going with this? At this point, I just have questions. I'm not like, I like the episode. I think the Bad Batch overall, great. But there is this one sticking point that I'm like, where were you guys going with this? I'm very curious.
Dominic's having a meltdown.
Yeah, no, Joe Wall, standing tall and gold. Joe Wall, brick wall.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I agree, Ben. This I haven't felt this at all this season. That like, that this wasn't always the plan to be the last season, that this felt like they were building towards an ultimate conclusion. These dudes are the one part of the story where I'm like, maybe there was something more. Maybe there's something more planned and they just didn't get to it. And that's where that's where I'm like, there's a small amount of, not even a small amount, there's just potential left on the table. And again, I'm not saying the finale didn't live up to its potential. I'm not saying that the finale was bad. I think the finale was really, really good. This is just an area where I was like, this was really cool. And I feel like more could have been done here. And they kept like teasing the helmets coming off. It's like Vader's helmet coming off in Empire or even in Rogue One, where you can't see the face underneath. And so like I was holding on to the tech thing like to the bitter end, because they just there were all these weird shots like just sort of from behind it, and it made me wonder, like, are we supposed to think like this is literally like the Bad Batch, just the evil versions? Is it like the Bizarro Bad Batch, like is something like that going on? And ultimately it just like I said, it's the Knights of Ren, a bunch of guys that look cool for one action scene, and then it's done. All right, let's talk about the epilogue. The clones are rescued. They go back to Pabu. Hunter and Omega and Crosshair and Wrecker are safe. Emery and Echo are talking about what they're going to do for people, how they're going to, continue the cause, continue the fight in other ways. And then we fade to black. And I was like, that's a pretty satisfying ending.
Yeah,
I'm okay if it ends here, but I'm greedy and I want a little bit more. And thankfully it faded right back. And there's a figure, and we're pretty sure it's Omega, and she's wandering through the dark to that place where all secret ships are hidden. And for a second I was like, is it Ventress? And I'm like, is it Hera? Is it like, who's it gonna be? And of course it's just old man Hunter waiting for her, and she tells him she's off to go join the rebellion. What did we think of this epilogue, of this conclusion to the series. Ben, let's go to you first.
Yeah, no, I mean this is really the beautiful part of the episode that I was talking about. Just like this is ultimately a very wholesome, happy ending. I think it's a great thing. I think it would have worked with that last shot because I was like when it fades up, like I was purposefully not tapping my screen to see the bottom bar on it or anything. I was like keeping because I'm like, is it gonna end? Is it gonna end? Is it gonna end? And then it came back. I'm like, okay, all right, we're still going here. We're still going here, and he's back.
We have Chef in.
Oh
Jeff
my
Davis.
goodness, that's amazing.
It's gonna make no sense
I
to the
hope
audio
you're
listeners.
not hungry anymore.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Yeah. Continue, Ben.
No, you're fine. Ultimately, like it is, this is this great moment. I like the idea of, because we all talk about these characters and we know this story because we all will talk about, where were they during Return of the Jedi? Where were they during the Rise of Skywalker? Was everybody at the Battle of Mexico? Like this whole thing, like we're expecting, the Havoc Marauder back before we realized it was gonna get destroyed. Is that in the Battle of Mexico? What is this? I like the idea of characters can just live. They can just go off and they don't have to have any epic endings. We don't have to assume that Hunter and Wrecker and Crosshair like fought in the Battle of Endor or whatever else. They just went and they lived their lives, and because it wasn't their fight. I like this idea and this theme that keeps popping up in Star Wars where you kind of have the older generation kind of passing things down and going like, and maybe sometimes it's bad, maybe sometimes it's not, but I think most of the examples are good. I'm just like, I think in a way, Obi-Wan in A New Hope is like, he literally says, I'm getting too old for this sort of thing. This is your fight. Like, this is your thing. Yeah. And then you have Kanan and Ezra. Kanan, like, really, like, instilling a lot of stuff in and putting a lot of on Ezra's shoulders and saying, like, look, I fought one war. I can't keep doing this. This is the kids' problem now. And this kind of generational responsibility of just like, I will fight my battles up to a certain point, and it's the next generation's responsibility to take things and run with them again. And this is, of course, Omega's time to do that. And I think I love the fact, and it, like I said before, if this is all we get, if we never see the Bad Batch again, if we never see Omega again, and we just assume she just went off and fought with the rebellion and had a happy ending, I am completely, utterly satisfied. I would love to see her again, and I'll be shocked if we don't see any of these characters again. In fact, I would bet on seeing all of them again at some point because it's Star Wars and no one has ever really gone. But yeah, it's a great little scene. It's a great way to end the series. I think it's another happy ending, because I think we have happy endings. Rebels was kind of a bittersweet ending because we had that unresolved thing. Clone Wars, very dark, very not happy ending.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of really bad endings, especially in Star Wars TV shows. And even Ahsoka's like kind of a bittersweet ending.
Obi-Wan too.
There's so many of them. Man, we've had more sad endings in Star Wars TV than we have anything. Kind of crazy. So Bad Batch is the odd one out, and I'm glad.
Yeah. Chris, what'd you think of the epilogue?
Yeah. I think I would have been satisfied without it. And the way I'm trying to make sure that doesn't sound like I don't like it because I loved it. What I mean to say is I didn't need it, but the fact that it was there was really, really great because it gave us some insight into the future of the characters, because the way that they had wrapped it up, it was appearing to park the characters for indefinitely. And so, they could show up, but they didn't need to, and you didn't know what to expect. This epilogue gave us that potential next chapter in the story with Omega joining the rebellion. Which I thought was really, really cool. So really, if anything, it just, now they have to do it. Now they have to bring her back, or otherwise it's going to be disappointing. So I'm very interested to see, where she fits back in, if it's in like maybe a Tales of the Jedi arc about Omega being a part of the rebellion. Like that would be really cool. So Tales of the Rebellion, I guess, because I know we have was it Tales of the Empire happening.
Tales of the Rebellion. One set of 3 based around Omega, the other set of 3 based around Carson Teva. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Yes, let's go. Or together. And so that's awesome. And then or potentially just another series too. Like perhaps these Tales shows won't be the only thing in this type of Star Wars animation. Perhaps there will be another show like the Bad Batch that is in the Rebellion era that will continue to tell stories of these characters, because and I kind of lean more on that side. At this point now I'm getting into the future of the show, so I don't know if that's another part of the discussion
I think that's fair. I'll just add that I also loved it. I thought it was really sweet and was really fitting. It was really nice to end with Hunter and Omega, because that relationship has really been the core of the series. So to wrap up there was really nice, and to get a sense, Chris, like you're saying, it did feel like they were parking the characters, and to get a sense of they stayed more or less parked for a little while, but then at least one of them goes back into the galaxy. But I think I said this last week. It does feel like with this show we really are winding down the Clone Wars era and moving into the more Rebellion era. And I think Tales of the Empire is going to kind of do the same thing with wrapping up Barris's storyline. I do still think that the Rex Wolf thing is probably lingering out there, that could probably be picked up on in something. And then but ultimately it feels like a lot of these characters are going to be brought forward into the Rebellion or even the post Return of the Jedi era, much in the same way that the Rebels characters were kind of parked after Rebels until Ahsoka came around, and we see them in the post Jedi pre Force Awakens era. So that's sort of where my thinking is at. But this was really a really nice way to wrap up the series and end on a sweet note that's hopeful for the future, and suggests these characters, the lessons learned here for these characters are going to continue to inspire and have impact on the larger galaxy and future characters. Yeah,
definitely.
And I loved Omega's Malibu Stacy hair.
She's had some amazing hairstyles throughout the show. I love it. So then kind of moving on to just not just her character, but the future for everyone. That's the other big thread here that Kieran's mentioning in the chat, Asajj Ventress. And I was surprised that we didn't see her show up again in the show. I thought she would be in the finale if I had to put a guess, and she wasn't. And so that makes me think that the whole big introduction with her was for something else, and kind of similar to like a backdoor pilot of sorts, similar to how we had that one Ahsoka episode of The Mandalorian, and then get a whole show. Like that's what I get. So I feel like we're probably getting in a show that Asajj is going to be a main character in, or at least a Tales of the something arc, that continues her story. Because I think she's way too big of a character to bring back from the dead. Speaking of necromancy, we all assumed she was dead, except for me, who kept forgetting she was dead, and then had to be reminded of, well, she's probably dead. But I mean, that's way too big of a moment just to come back for that one little kind of toolkit piece of the storyline for this series. Like I really think there's more there. So I think there's a bright future for the character of Omega, a bright future for the character of Asajj, and potentially some other things going on with some other characters that could play into things in this era as well.
Yeah, and the way they left even the pre-epilogue bit was like, these characters, they're not going to be the stars of their own show for a while, but they could pop up in other things that are going on. If the Rex stuff leads to a new show, if the Ventress stuff leads to a new show, there could be guest star of the week Hunter, guest star of the week Wrecker, guest star of the week Omega. Like that can still be part of the story going forward. All right, let's do this one more time. You know what time it is. It's time for our favorite segment. It's your favorite segment. It's my favorite segment. It's everyone's favorite segment. It's time once again for
Ben's Connection Corner. Connections in the corner with Ben. It's Ben's Connection Corner. Do.
How's it going, everybody?
Ben's Connection Corner is filmed in front of a live studio audience.
So, Ben, if you say one of your big connections is Project Stardust, I'm going to and slap you.
No.
But one more time for the Bad Batch. What did you find for us?
It's your lucky day, actually.
Is it easier? Is it easier without Alex here too? Is it easier?
So much easier. God. So much easier. I can rest. It's so intimidating. My God. Yeah, I'm out of my depth with Alex here. No offense to Alex, but he's a very intimidating person. He's one of the nicest people you will ever meet, but he's so intimidating, especially when it comes to Star Wars knowledge. Like I forgot to mention this back. It's like, for those who don't know, for the trivia contest, we do the entry quiz to get into the Dragon Con trivia contest that they do every year in Atlanta. I've won it twice here on the thing. Just for anybody that forgot, I won it twice. Alex has won the contest multiple times. Both him and Molly have won it.
Also, Ben, you've won their version of the entry contest 3 times. You're on a three-peat. You're not twice. You've won 3 times.
What?
Yeah, you've won 3 times. We've done that thing 3 times. But yeah, we're doing the quote unquote easy version of it, and Alex takes on the hard version.
Yeah, it's thing. So I'm I don't know, because it is. I mean, it is very hard. I know I make it look easy sometimes, but it's very hard. And the questions on there are befuddling. Some of the questions, I can't imagine what the actual quiz looks like. So enough trivia, enough intimidation. I just found a connection, literally, as we were talking here. You pulled up one of those images. I saw one. I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? I'll get to it in a second.
Okay.
So first off, just connections within this season. I love the fact that the first episode of this season goes above and beyond to set up the data pads and be oh yeah, the data pads are important, and then they're very important in this episode. Then you have the handoff from Emery to Omega to Rampart. It's really great. I believe, and someone please correct me on this. I'm open to corrections. Open to someone correct me. Do not take my word as gospel. But I believe this is the first time ever in Star Wars we have seen an Imperial Star Destroyer in the same shot with a Venator Star Destroyer. And I believe this is also the first time in the timeline-wise, the first appearance of a Imperial Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
And just, my God, looks so beautiful. It's funny how literally one of the first designs we ever saw in Star Wars was that design. And it's still, every time you see it on screen, it is timeless. But yeah, very cool to see that. And I also, if the canon is to be believed, that is also the same Star Destroyer that the Ghost Crew blows up in Rebels.
Oh yeah. Oh, nice.
I mean, it's Tarkin's Star Destroyer, the song.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
Which it should be.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up we've got a latest appearance of Captain Bragg. And you may be asking, who the hell is Captain Bragg?
Yeah, that was my question.
She is a character who showed up. He should actually been in all 3 seasons of Bad Batch. She showed up in season 1's Common Ground and season 2's The Outpost. She is a character. She's the female Imperial officer that accompanies Tarkin into Tantus base.
Okay.
So, and she's voiced by Shelby Young, who does a ton of different voices, including Leia and all kinds of stuff in other projects. Great.
Nice.
The one other connection that I have, I literally just noticed, I was looking at the photo of Omega from where is it? Yeah, that one. I was looking at her hands and I was looking at her gloves, and I was like, those gloves look familiar. And I did some comparisons that I cannot show you, but you're just gonna have to trust me on this one. Those are Han Solo gloves. They have they are black on the inside, white on the outside, and they have the outer part of the hand, this part of the hand, cut out, like a half moon shape. And they are the gloves that Han Solo wears in A New Hope, and I think Solo: A Star Wars Story.
Wow.
You're muted.
Very nice is what I was saying.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought that was me. I'm like, wait.
Was I? I was distracted. Yeah, excellent. All right, that's been another fun, dynamic, exciting, insightful, lovely, wonderful, tremendous edition of
Ben's Connection Corner. Connections in the corner with Ben. It's Ben's Connection Corner. Do.
How's it going, everybody?
Ben's Connection Corner is filmed in front of a live studio audience.
All right. Anything else we want to bring up before we do final thoughts and scores out of 10 for this?
I mean, it was so cool to see the Zillow Beast again. We didn't really talk about it that much. I mean, this is one of my favorite characters, quote unquote, from the animated Filoniverse, I guess is what we're gonna call it. I love that the Beast is back, and I love that Zillow Beast just ran off and now it's just out there on Tanta somewhere. I think that's kind of cool. Free at last. So that was a really cool part of this episode. I thought they did really well. I thought more people should have died. That's all I my only complaint is I thought more people were gonna get eaten than that.
Not enough people getting smushed and eaten.
Yeah. I thought the Zillow Beast would eat literally every Imperial character. Like that's what I thought was gonna happen.
Yeah, I did expect the Zillow to have more of a role in this, but I'm happy with the role.
I mean, it was still a huge role. It was still, I mean, making that hole for characters to get in and get out was huge. And so I'm not complaining about that, but from a
really fun way to do it. Yeah.
From a character point of view, yeah.
But I like that canonically, if say in the Mandoverse, we have to go to Mount Tantus, or they go, somebody has to go break into that hallowed ground that has been sealed off. There's a Zillow Beast wandering around in them hills.
That would be fun. And Favreau and Filoni cannot resist a big monster. So Zillow Beasted up.
Beast, somehow the Zillow Beast returns. Not extinct anymore.
Zillow Beast returns, yeah. All right. Well, then in that case, let's go around the table one final time, give some final thoughts and scores out of 10 for this episode. Chris, start us off. Final thoughts, score out of 10 for The Cavalry Has Arrived.
Oh man. I thought this was like, I'm gonna do a thing on this. That score is not correct though. I'm gonna change whatever I had on there before. So yeah, I thought this was an incredible ending for the show. And I think in general, Star Wars shows have had really good finales. Like I'm hard pressed to think of a finale of a Star Wars series that I did not think was worthy. But I think some of them kind of will stand out over time and kind of have more of kind of a lasting standout. I think that the Clone Wars finale for me will always really, really stand out. And I think this one will as well, as just an extremely well executed, amazingly emotionally poignant like finale. So everything I said at the beginning, all the pieces came together for storytelling in this, for a phenomenal 40 plus minutes of TV. I don't know if that's a retro thing to call it at this point, but amazing stuff. So I'm just really excited to see what Brad Rao and Jennifer Corbett do in the future. I think that they're really amazing rising stars within the Star Wars storytelling group. Unofficially, not the official story group. And I really hope to see more stuff from them and more stuff with the characters that they've helped guide through creation. So more great stuff from Filoni, more great stuff from them, more great stuff from, Lee Bradley Baker. I've got to say that, I kind of put up on the pantheon of just like, how did you do this? Tatiana Maslany and D. Bradley Baker for portraying so many characters in their shows. And I feel like D, he gets a lot of awards, but I think he needs to get even more awards for just the incredible job that he did playing so many amazing characters in the show and carrying such a huge percentage of the show with the amazing addition of Michelle Ang to Star Wars as well. So this show will be a recommendation for me, for every Star Wars fan. I will always recommend watch the Clone Wars, watch the Bad Batch as two of the things that people really need to watch outside of the films. Absolutely incredible. So for me, it is a 11 out of 10.
11 out of 10.
Yeah, this is I could not. Yes, there are things that they could have added to make it a 12 or a 13. Yes, Ventress could have showed up, Palpatine could have showed up, Ventress and Palpatine could have fought each other. Like, there could have been some wild stuff, but I think they focused on the Bad Batch characters perfectly, and that's what they needed to do. So 11 out of 10 for me.
11 out of 10 from Chris. Ben, over to you.
Yeah, so I mean, I go back to, and I'll echo what I've heard a lot of other people say, and I've been saying it for a while, that like, when the Bad Batch was first announced, it was like I was kind of bewildered. I was just like, really, those guys are getting a show? Like, okay, cool, but also not my first choice for a Star Wars animated show. And as we've gotten more into it, obviously I've gotten more into it myself, and I can say I think this is one of the best structured shows thus far. I think just having a show have just such a strong beginning, a middle, and an end, I think really makes Bad Batch shine. As someone who I still contend the Clone Wars is the best TV show of all time, in my humble opinion. It does have its weaknesses. I think Bad Batch has less weaknesses in regards to how it told a story and how it finished. And I think this show will have a tremendous legacy.
Yeah! Oh, wow.
Something was coming.
That was visceral. I guess that means 2-0.
Nothing. Another goal from
Neil.
Nylander.
Either you were really interested in what I was saying, or something was happening.
Ben, I was listening intently. I was very excited, but and I really agree with your point, but even more so excited about this.
This is really messing with my brain, man. I hear you talking, and then I hear you after on the YouTube app, and I see the goal, and then I hear you yell about it after. It's like I'm in the future, but I'm in the past, but I'm in the past, but I'm in the future. I don't know what's happening.
Oh man, there's so many timelines that are did.
Time is not linear. It's a big ball of wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff.
Indeed.
Quote the Doctor.
Someone's gone through the TARDIS.
It's true. All of it.
There we go. Yes, Ben. Yes, I will whoop your points, but I will whoop William Nylander's goal even more so.
No problem. I was rambling anyway. All that is to say, the Bad Batch is some good Star Wars. It was some good Star Wars, and it will continue to be some good Star Wars. And honestly, I'm sad to see it go. I'm sad that we're at the end now. I'm sad that we don't get to talk about it every week. We don't have to get to anticipate any more seasons, but you really can't expect much more from a show. And I think it really is. It's great that the show went out on such a high note, because so many shows do not get that privilege. So, and this episode in particular, I think, was such a high note and such a great thing, and just a brilliant episode in so many ways. And I can't wait to watch it again and again and again, because I think it is like Aftermath, which is really one of my favorite episodes of the series thus far. Which is a kind of great Star Wars movie into itself. I will not say it's without flaws. Okay, look, I was the whole Batter Batch or whatever we're calling them. They're a bit bewildering. They did my boy Scorch real dirty. That's I'm not sure what was going on there, guys, but somebody on the team did not like the Republic Commandos. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. So I think I'm gonna deduct a tiny point from this. I'm gonna give this a 9.9 out of 10.
I mean, 99. That's still pretty.
99. Yeah, that does work. That really does
apropos.
work. I gotta give that to you, Ben.
Totally intended.
Well, I will say obviously I've loved this series. You guys have heard me talk about it for all 3 seasons. This show has been a wonderful, not a surprise, because I always figured it would be good knowing the talent behind it, but just again, these characters were a surprise choice, and sometimes surprises are the best things. So I really am quite happy with how this series went and how it wound up. I think we've gotten some classic new characters. We've gotten some fun looks at returning characters and old favorites. So really, really exciting stuff. What is also really, really exciting is that we will have, for Star Wars Day on May 4th, a Game 7 in Boston between Toronto and between the Maple Leafs and the Bruins, as we the ultimate way to celebrate Star Wars Day is with a big hockey game. But I will give this again, there was maybe some potential left on the table, but who knows, maybe there's a future for these things, given that I expect these storytellers to be involved going forward. So I'll end with a let's go with a 10 out of 10. I really, really did like it. It was really, really strong finale. All right. You know what? I'm so excited. You know what I want to do? I want to dance. And so I think what we should do is we should have some music. Ooh. We've got we're going to debut a new track from F105. This is the new version of Toys. It's off the new EP. You know what, Din, why don't you set it up? Din, come on in here and set up what we're about to hear.
Oh yeah, so I was really dissatisfied with the original F105 3 with toy.
You are Din Grogu. You literally swallowed a frog. How dare you? All Dominic's frogs.
Okay.
Leave the eggs alone.
Because we rushed it out to have it out in time for Celebration 2022.
There it is.
And it didn't have a real drummer on it, and so this is a totally re-recorded EP with full band, and we took some creative risks with genre. So this is kind of our version of funk and soul track with some Star Wars stuff in it.
Yeah. So we're gonna feature the lyric video for. Yes, the not final draft version of the lyric video for the new version of Toys that will be on F105 3, the Baby Makes 3 mix version that will come out on May 4th. So everybody get ready to groove, get ready to dance, and enjoy this new version of Toys.
Now boarding the LA 610. This is called Toys.
Transfer my memories into a screen. I'll be a child again. Just let me dream. And as the monkey swings from tree to tree, we keep reaching for more without thinking about anything. So we make some noise. I brought my toys. It seems the farther I get, the further I don't go. Oh no. It seems the farther I get, the further I don't go. So we make some noise. I brought my toys. It seems the farther I get, the further I don't go.
And that was F105 off the new release of 3, the Baby Makes 3 mix. There it is. I got it right then. That was Toys, the Peace Frogs of Venice edit, which was you hear, yeah, there's some Star Wars in there. You hear it. You got some references, Din Djarin, Luke Skywalker, and if you're watching the video, you saw the rough cut of the lyric video. If you're watching along live, you get there's some Star Wars illustrations in there that Din did all of those illustrations. So like Ahsoka's in there, Mando, Grogu, George. George is
I
in
noticed
there.
George first.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah. There's George.
Man,
so
that's really cool.
the new EP comes out on May 4th. So check it out on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your music, and enjoy. It'll be fun. I'll say now, because he's here, Din will make a proper appearance on the show next week to join us to talk about Tales of the Empire and all that stuff, which is going to be a lot of fun.
Amazing. I love hearing Dominic Jones being a disc jockey talking about Din Djarin. All the alliterative awesomeness.
I like it.
It's cool.
I like it. All right. We've still got a little bit of time here. Let's jump right to Ask the SWU. Let's get through a couple of these questions. We may have to save some of these for a future week. I'm just looking at the time here. Yeah, but we'll start with one of our super chats from Joel, who throws in this. I'm still not 100% convinced Necromancer, as it's known by the rest of the Empire, is about Palpatine cloning himself, given Imp leadership doesn't act like the true Palpatine is alive. I don't know. I feel like they do. Like in that scene in Mando, it almost seems like they're almost like acting like they're buying time until Project Necromancer can be ready. That's my feel on it.
I mean, do we really see the upper echelons of the Empire anyway? Like, I feel like a lot of people that we see are kind of side characters, and we don't really get into the main ones as much. Like they try to be in control, like like Gideon tries to be like, I'm in charge, but I don't know. I don't know. They really
feels like so much the Empire is just like it's one guy reporting to another guy, and that guy doesn't know he's reporting to somebody else. Was like with the whole thing with like you have small instances of this with like oh, the client is the big bad guy, Mandalorian. Nope, he gets killed by Moff Gideon. He's the bad guy, and then you have big examples with like Snoke is a bad guy. No. Palpatine's in the background. There's always a bigger fish. There's always a bigger villain.
Yeah, it's true. There's always a bigger fish, always a bigger villain. I like it. All right, what else we got? Let's go to the Discord for the next one. This one comes from Martin Ingleston. What surprise announcement or announcements do you predict Lucasfilm will make on May 4th, if any at all? I'm gonna say none at all.
I think it's just content.
Yeah, I think
we're gonna get the Tales of the Empire and
Tales of the Empire. There's Phantom Menace in theaters with the Acolyte preview.
Yeah.
There was a part of me, I would say, there was all of me that was convinced for a second, because when we got to the end of the Bad Batch episode, Cavalry Has Arrived, I scrolled all the way to the end to the credits. I watched the entire credits. I'm like, what if they pull a Book of Boba Fett and they have a post-credit scene, another Star Wars post-credit scene? What if? They didn't, but there is, like I said, that whole idea of Rex and Echo and what they're doing. I think that show could be out there or something, just like the next chapter. Like, I don't feel like Tales of the Empire doesn't count. Like, Tales of the Empire is just kind of like it's a continuation of something we already had. Tales of Continuation, Tales of J. I want to know where we're actually going next. And I think that's the best bet. Other than that, we know stuff about the movies, we know stuff about video games, we know stuff about other Star Wars TV shows. Maybe we'll get another Acolyte trailer, maybe because they're doing something. There's a con in Mexico that's happening. There's shenanigans about, so we could get some more stuff there. But announcements wise, I'm betting not.
Yeah, like a dark horse prediction I might make is like something silly like the cast of the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, because that wasn't announced. So like Pedro Pascal, Brendan Wayne, Lateef Crowder, Katie Sackhoff, something like that. Like just make that sort of announcement. Emily Swallow, something like that. Just confirm that the TV cast is jumping over to the. Yeah, just confirm the TV cast is jumping over to the cinematic side, but and like maybe like one
recasting everyone for the movie. Let's bring out Danny DeVito as Din Djarin.
Okay, why not? Why not? All right, let's go another one from the Discord. Chad DeLorean. Chad says the next animated show is about Rebel pilot Omega teaming up with Hera post A New Hope. Right?
I mean, that seems obvious to me.
It does. Ben, you were saying the post-credit scene. I mean, the epilogue's kind of a post-credit scene just before the credits.
Basically.
And yeah, it feels like that's the story that's coming down the line.
I do love, this is a sort of connection. Somebody else pointed this out on Twitter that like her ship, basically just a miniature version of the Marauder. It even has folding down wings, which is kind of cool. Now we're all going to be looking in the background of every single space battle from now on to see if we can spot that ship.
Oh my goodness.
Let's see. Let's go for another one let's go to a super chat. This comes from Joel. Joel says, my working theory is that the Remnant wants to clone the Emperor, but not realizing that Palpatine's spirit is out there waiting for a new and better body. What do we think?
So just to clone, to bring a new one back to life, but not the same. I mean, I can kind of see that, but at the same time, I feel like it's not about. I wonder if it has to do with needing a figurehead to rally the troops, because as far as power is concerned, you can clone like any Force user, and that's something that's been played around with in lots of post Return of the Jedi stuff.
Yeah, it is an interesting idea of just like different ways you can approach that. Of just like from Palpatine's perspective, he's just like, he's a Sith. He wants power. He wants to hold on to that power. He's afraid of losing that power, so he wants to clone himself to hold on to life as long as possible so he can have different bodies. But from a purely Imperial, has no concept of Sith or whatever else, probably doesn't even know Palpatine is a Sith Lord perspective, they're just like, hey, we need a guy. We need an emperor. And, you could get more into this is obviously Palpatine is based on real world figures like this. You can play into like, how do they see the Palpatine? Is he just a good politician that we all like, or is he emperor that we should worship or something like that? Do you get into the real fanaticism of Palpatine?
Yeah, you could do that with him being dead. Like, you can still make him like a god after he's dead, like, many civilizations with kind of despotic leaders have done. Or is it despotic leaders? I can't that word.
Despotic, I think.
It's despotic. Right? Okay.
Despotic.
So yeah, I mean, but at the same time, I think everybody who the Imperial Remnants, the leaders of the Imperial Remnants, I think they all want to be the Emperor. I think they all want to be in control of the whole thing, and so I don't think they're going to want to bring him back, because then it's a threat to them, because that would knock them down a peg from where they're at right now. There'd be someone actually over them, which they don't have right now.
Because I think so many in the Empire operate out of fear of him, out of fear of I'm gonna get zapped with lightning. I'm gonna get and fear of both Palpatine and Vader, but also I think as you're saying, they want power themselves. They're not Sith, but they're still power hungry, and they will backstab each other to get it. I think that could be the ultimate downfall of the Empire. Just like, and that's what I think. I think it's not going to be Palpatine, because Thrawn is supposed to fill that role. Thrawn is going to be the Emperor without the Emperor title. Maybe he will be Emperor. Who knows?
Yeah, Emperor Thrawn.
That's such an empty fulfillment in like, finding satisfaction in the power within a hierarchy. Like, because it's like you have that fleeting moment of, oh, I've ranked up, I've been promoted. Oh, the other guy failed and now I'm in his spot. Look at this. I'm better. And then it goes away very quickly and is replaced by, okay, how do I get one level up from where I am now? How do I keep this guy off my back that I'm under their thumb now? And so I think everybody thinks, oh, I just keep climbing until I get to the top. And then when I am at the spot where Palpatine was, then maybe I will truly be satisfied. But we know, I don't think even Palpatine was satisfied with that, because then after that, he started chasing immortality. So it's just one thing after another when you're chasing these empty things. And it's a good illustration of the difference between the light side and the dark side, and the kind of empire and the resistance slash rebellion. Is, for one, it's acting together for a cause, and the other one, it's just about how to position yourself within a power structure.
Yeah, good point. Well made. All right, let's see what else we got. Let's go to the Discord here. Gilster10 says, do you think we can get a canonized version of droids or Ewoks TV shows in some form? They mentioned 3PO R2 movie a long time ago, and there's been no news since then. For the Ewoks, I would love to see more of Endor, like the Dulocs and other elements from the Ewok films, like the Night Sister Charl. They could also make Endor like Pandora from Avatar and showcase how the Ewoks deal with the Empire when they first arrive, or any colonists that crash land on the moon like a Jedi. Sure, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Well, love some more Ewok content. I think that'd be fun. I also would like to know what happened to A Droid's Tale. That show.
Yeah, what wait up.
That was announced that just has never happened.
Where
never,
is The Droid's Tale? Is it safe? Is it all right?
That one, and then the Lando show / movie / video game /
it seems. Yeah, but the Glovers seem to be rewriting that one into a movie.
There's more, there's more promise behind that. We've had more updates about that one. Droid's Tale was just, there's been nothing for like years now.
Nothing literally since that that presentation at the end of 2020. We've had nothing. It's really crazy.
I wonder did they say who was gonna show run that? Did they say anything?
No,
just the name.
It was really vague. It was a collaboration between ILM and Lucasfilm Animation.
Oh, I remember now.
Nothing more has been said, and I remember seeing pictures of like Anthony Daniels in like a mocap suit, and R2 was on like the mocap stage at like the Imaginarium, the Andy Serkis's company. But like nothing more has come from it. So
that makes sense. ILM will do a lot of experimental stuff like XLab and stuff. So I bet it's probably one of those things that was an experiment that they thought, oh, we can announce this, and they weren't far enough in development to truly be certain of its future.
Which is a shame. It would have been cool. All right. We're gonna have to save some of these for next week. So I'm trying to sort of pick ones that we can. If
you don't hear it tonight, we will get to you next week. We probably will have. I don't know if we'll have more time. To be honhonest, we'll have even more content to talk about.
We have a lot to talk about next week.
Yeah. All right. We may build up some of these for a big future week. So continue to send them in, and don't worry. Yeah, and don't worry if you don't hear it this week.
Not gonna miss you.
I'm going to do this one because I don't recognize this username. So I'm like, this must be a new person. Let's give a new person a chance. Blackthorn writes in and says, do you think that they wanted one or two more seasons and that they abandoned a few storylines to complete the main story? Also, I'm predicting a follow-up series in the Filoniverse style called The Jedi Path. It will feature Rex, Echo, Ventress, and Quinlan shepherding younglings to safety. It will also feature flashbacks from and after Dark Disciple.
Oh, don't make me mad when that doesn't happen. That would be such. I would be so down for that.
Yeah, I mean, we've been thinking of Rex. At least I'll say we. I've been thinking of a Rex show and a Ventress show as being two separate entities. But why not make it all one? That'd be kind of fun.
Why not just bring back an anthology show in the timeline, the Dark Times show or whatever, and just a Rebellion show or whatever you want to call it? Like, yeah. That would be great. There was another point. Oh yeah, about future storylines. I think this was intended to have as many seasons as it did. The structure of the story definitely speaks to it. I think it's the same with Star Wars Rebels. I think this and Star Wars Rebels both had a structure that was very mapped out. Now I think that Star Wars Rebels structure was I think Rogue One came in and said, oh, we're gonna take some of this, and then they had to rebuild some of it, and I think it got a little clunky because of that. But I still think that when they kind of recombobulated themselves, I think that's the word. I think they did have a good structure to end the show, and same with this. Now the Clone Wars is a different story. That was ended obviously prematurely, and we all know that. But then they came back and did do the last season how it was supposed to be done, but they did abbreviate and get to it a little faster than they thought, and it did hang a lot of stories. But I don't think that's the case with Bad Batch. I don't think it's the same situation. I think that anything that they've added as a loose thread or as a a potential offshoot of this show, I think was very intentional. Of that we're going to see this in other stuff. It wasn't like, okay, this is going to come back in this show, and then they just didn't get the chance to do it.
And this kind of plays into what I was saying earlier. It's like I feel like Bad Batch is kind of the most consistent show we've had. I think what they set out to do was 3 seasons, and they did it. Whereas other shows, like we're talking about, like Rebels, mostly consistent, but also had some stumbles. You can tell. Resistance, I'm still convinced was going to go on for many more seasons.
At least one more,
They just cut it. And then we know what happened with Clone Wars. So I think Bad Batch is close to perfect as we've gotten in regards to like a show that they set out to do this thing and they did it, and they ended it the way they wanted to, which happens so rarely with television, as even these days. So
yeah, it's true. Like I said, I think like with like the CX clones, like maybe they bit off a bit more with the Naked Chew. Like they maybe had wanted to do more with them, but they ran out of stories to do it with, or ran out of time to do with it, because that's such a cool concept, and those characters were so cool that to utilize them only for one action sequence at the end felt a little bit, I don't know.
I think having pieces of them in previous episodes, like just one was probably why they were okay with that.
Yeah. And again, like that one seemed to have a real, again, maybe this is me projecting on it. Maybe this is us as the audience projecting on it. It seemed to have like a real like connection to the Bad Batch, or like a real like targeted. Nate like really was targeting the Bad Batch. But again, maybe that was just a function of these characters are supposed to be so like efficient and so good at what they do that it didn't need to have like any sort of special connection. It could just do it.
They're clones. The connection is, I think they're both clones. They are brothers. So I think that can't be discounted. And maybe there was a possibility that at some point in the past, those characters did fight alongside each other.
Yeah. And like, I would have liked, if that was the case, I would have liked to reveal there. Again, it doesn't have to be tech, it could be anything, but so that's the one place in the finale where I'm like, there seems like there could have been a little bit more. Maybe there was at one point a plan for a little bit more, and they ran out of time, ran out of episodes, and so what we got was the best that they could do, which was pretty freaking awesome. So that's the one place where I think maybe not even another season, just like a couple more episodes might have done that some good. Okay. I'll throw this last super chat up here from Joel, because it's not really a question, but it is an interesting point. A lot of Clone Wars stories and books and comics pre-episode 3 really act as if Palpatine and Sidious were 2 separate people. Yeah, that is true, and I think that's how
I thought that.
When you're telling stories in that era, you have to.
I actually thought that, because I was pretty young when this stuff was coming out, and so I didn't, really put 2 and 2 together like most people did. So as a kid watching this stuff, I thought that, I knew that Palpatine was the Emperor. Like I knew that because it was same name, obvious, same actor. but Sidious, I wasn't fully convinced that Sidious was Palpatine. Because I just, watching it, I was, I didn't have all the behind the scenes information and all the fandom. I wasn't talking to other fans at the time, so I didn't know until it was, I actually found out when I was reading the novelization of the Revenge of the Sith, which they used to release prior to the films coming out. I remember reading that and being like, "Oh wow, okay, that's what they were doing this whole time."
And you can imagine the conspiracy theories, because even if you say, like, if you're like genuinely, like, you're a kid like we were, like, watching the movies going like, well, Palpatine, there's Emperor Palpatine, and then there's Senator Palpatine, and like, what if they're different people? And then, or like, you have like Darth Sidious, this guy with a thing, like, what if they're different people? And then you go a little bit further and go like, well, they're both played by the same actor. Well, what does that mean? Anything? Like, you could still like make the case for that, because there could be shenanigans about it.
I didn't read the credits, clearly.
And also, did they even credit Darth Sidious? I don't know if they did. So like, I think it was all.
Maybe they didn't.
I think Lucasfilm genuinely like was like playing with it a little bit.
Yeah,
So-
like I want to see if there's anybody else who thought that I did, because I've not met anyone who didn't, who had the same, who didn't know for sure that they were the same. Like, most people, when I tell that to, they're like, wait, you didn't think that? Like, most people I know just assume that they were the same person the entire time. So I'm waiting to meet people that. But I this goes into this whole kind of side tangent about my theories about Star Wars prior to the saga being the 6 films being completed, and how I thought that Leia and Luke were half siblings.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so I thought they had the like, I can't remember which way it was, but basically I thought they had one parent in common, but one parent that was not in common. So I think I thought that Leia wasn't Darth Vader's, I thought Leia wasn't Anakin's daughter. I think that's what I was thinking at the time. Like, I think I thought that they had the same mother. But I actually thought that what was going to happen was, I thought that when Anakin turned to the dark side, because I knew about that, because that information was out there, that there was a battle on a lava planet that was on literally the Power of the Force 2 action figure cards for like Darth Vader and Obi-Wan talking about the battle that they had with each other. But what I thought was going to happen is they were going to have that battle. But I didn't realize Padme was going to die there, or beyond the period of dying there. I thought she was going to survive that, and I thought that she was going to get with Bail Organa. And I thought that Bail Organa and Padme were going to spawn Leia. And
I love this. This is like fan.
I mean,
This fan theories from back in the day.
We're laughing about this. You bring this up in 2004. Like, we're like, oh my god, you're right.
Go listen to some of our shows from 2014 to 2018. Like, we were coming up with all sorts of crazy stuff for the sequels. Yeah.
I mean, no, I was that kid. Like, I remember being that kid at school or whatever, telling the other kids, like, hey, I know what's going to happen in Revenge of the Sith. Like, what's going to happen is, Bail's going to get with Padme. Like, like, I remember telling them that. Like, I figured it out. I know, because, her last name is Organa. So, duh, like, that's her. Luke Skywalker's Anakin Skywalker's kid. Bail Organa is Bail Organa's kid. Padme is both of their mother. That's why they're siblings. Darth Vader never says, I have another offspring. I have another. He just says, you have a sister. He doesn't say I have a daughter. He says you have a sister. Like, it's.
Oh, I would love to have seen the YouTube videos back in the day. Oh, it just says sister, man. It didn't say daughter, it said sister. Obi-Wan was wise to hide her from me, but she's not my.
This would have been on something called Google Videos prior to YouTube being purchased by Google. Google had their own videos called Google Videos.
That's old. Makes me feel old. And as long as we're throwing out crackpot theories, I concocted the scheme because as many people that I didn't know, I was very confused by the Sifo Dyas reveal in Attack of the Clones. And so my way of rectifying it was that Sifo Dyas had to just be another name for Qui-Gon Jinn. That makes
sense.
It's like, because he says, like, Obi-Wan says, like, oh yeah, he died about 10 years ago. I'm like, well, so did Qui-Gon. Like he doesn't say that Qui-Gon is Sifo Dyas, but like that's the only thing that makes sense. Who is this Sifo Dyas dude? Like, and what is this going on here? Like that's the crackpot theories. But like, you know, and then I'm just realized, oh yeah, George, this is just George's writing, guys. This is just how he writes stories. He confuses us.
Oh, amazing. Good stuff. All right. I'm just gonna let everybody know that whose comment we didn't get to, that we will get to it next week. So Kajira, Tally, Vlad, and Matt, we will get to you next week.
Volvin Mart.
If not next week, we'll get to you the following week, because next week will also be a very busy show because we'll be dealing with the aftermath of May the 4th. But we have reached about that time when we have to say goodbye and begin to wrap things up for this week.
The way you said that was just like, we have to say goodbye. I was like, oh my gosh, it's intense. No, we will be back. We'll be back another same time, same place next week. That place is on YouTube or Facebook or our X account or our Twitch account, which I don't even know what's going on there, but I think we stream on there as well.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, I see it. We have actually one person watching on Twitch right now. Hello.
Shout out
Hi.
Twitch guy.
Yeah.
Twitch person.
Yeah, I've seen Twitch comments in the chat sometimes. It's really cool. So check that out. And that time is on Thursdays at a little bit after 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. We haven't been not every week do we start exactly then. So if you show up then and we're not live, just wait like 5 or 10 minutes. We will start. You'll see a little counter and everything, and we'll be going into the live stream. But in the meantime, make sure you follow us at the SWU and follow us on Threads at the SWU. And Dominic, thank you so much for hosting.
It was my pleasure. As always, it was great fun to do this episode, to talk about the Bad Batch finale. And you know, I'm gonna miss the show. I'm sad that it ends, but every ending brings a new beginning, and we've got Tales of the Empire to look forward to. We got the Acolyte to look forward to, and I'm sure we got plenty more from Star Wars animation and live action to look forward to in the next several years. So great fun times breaking down Bad Batch, first on Podforce 99, and then on the main show. And yeah, what a time, what a good time. Again, remember, check out the new version of F-105 3, the Baby Makes 3 mix. That comes out on May 4th. Celebrate Star Wars Day with some Star Wars adjacent music from our buddy Din and F105. And shout out to Din. That was, I'll tell you guys, that the idea of showing the video and premiering, like, that all came together today. And that's why Din was literally here, because he's like, we were making things happen behind the scenes. Like, we needed to be in the same space, and
he had to deliver the video to you in person. Some little data chip.
And then the hilarious thing, Din, who's not a hockey fan, doesn't watch hockey much. I was watching the Leafs game. I was watching the first period before I joined on here, and I was going to watch as we watched. And Din just got so into the first period. He was going to sort of sit in the room and occasionally comment in the studio and occasionally comment on stuff. He just got so into the game. He's like, no, I'm watching the game. You're on your own. I know.
Watching the game and raiding your fridge.
Yeah, exactly. Got in there, had some apples. That's apparently what he had. Yeah. For everybody who missed out on the live commentary from Din through the show, you missed out on something. But that was a lot of fun to have to do something like in studio like that. So that was really cool. And next week, look forward to Tales of the Empire, and hopefully we'll be recording during the second round of the Leafs playoff series.
Oh, wow.
We'll see how things go on Saturday. But great show. Happy Star Wars Day. Enjoy Phantom Menace in theaters. Enjoy Tales of the Empire. Enjoy it all. And can't wait to do all this again in 7 days' time.
Do we know if Stanley Cup Game 7 falls on a Thursday? Should we be looking at that?
Look, if the Leafs are in the Stanley Cup final and it's a potentially deciding game and it's on a Thursday, I don't care if it's the Acolyte finale. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be there. Yeah, not going to be there.
That's what I would think. Yeah.
Although the Acolyte finale will be in July, so that's not going to happen.
That's like I'm so grateful the Super Bowl is on a Sunday and never on a Thursday. I don't have to worry about that. But I don't know, World Series maybe.
Yeah.
I would probably skip the show for that as well. Fantastic. At Dominic J25 is where you can follow Dominic's burgeoning disc jockey career. Ben, thank you for hosting as well.
Oh, it was a pleasure as always. Bittersweet farewell to the Bad Batch, but also hello to Tales of the Empire and so many other things. I mean, gosh, let's in about a month we'll be watching The Acolyte, which is just mind-blowing. We're not gonna get any breaks anytime soon, guys. There's so much Star Wars coming down the pipe. And yeah, we are also in Star Wars month, guys. May the 4th be with you. I'll be first to say that. And yeah, we're having so much. I mean, gosh, what? Almost every movie has an anniversary this year. George Lucas's birthday is in this month. There's so many things happening. It's going to be wild, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, can't wait to do it all again next week.
We need some holiday names for like the second and the third. Like the first is 501st Day, and then you got you got May the 4th be with you. You got Revenge of the 5th and Revenge of the 6th, and then there's another alternate version of those, so you can have separate days. I'm forgetting what that is right now, but something that rhymes with 6th. And
also, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, but the second, I'm thinking like May 2 they are, or something like that. And then someone help me come up with an idea for the May 3rd.
Oh my god!
Because we need a Star Wars week.
I'm sorry. I just remembered something. He'll kill me if I don't mention this. I'll kill myself. Jeff, our good friend Jeff White, he invited both myself and Hannah Raeside on the latest edition of the Hype Function podcast.
Nice.
I just released literally a few minutes ago, I think. It's up on all your podcatchers, so definitely go check that out. We talked about Star Wars video games, and it was a lot of fun. And yeah,
nice. Yeah, this is a great time to talk about Star Wars video games. Amazing, there's so much going on right now. Check that out. Hype Function. Is he just at Hype Function Pod?
I believe so. Yes. Yeah. Just search Hype Function. I'm pretty sure it's the only Hype Function.
The only thing with Hype Function.
Podcatchers.
Yeah, check that out. It's a really fun show. I've been on many episodes as well. Awesome. Thank you. At Ben Hart with no E's, where you can find Ben on social media. I'm at Seek3PO. And we want to remind everybody, if you're watching on YouTube, to punch that subscribe button, to also subscribe if you're listening in a podcast app. Thanks to everybody who super chatted with us. Thanks to all our channel members. Make sure you check out our Discord. The link is down in the show notes, the description accompanying this podcast. And then last but not least, check out all the other shows on the Star Wars Underworld Network, the Raeside, Raeside, Ion Cannon, Tales from Beyond the Galaxy, Tractor Beam, and more. So that's it. We'll be back next week. Until then, for Dominic and Ben, my name is Chris, and may the Force be with you.
It's not a wrap.